Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing so y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now let's have a little fun here. Let's talk about some stuff, that probably could have happened. You know, let's speculate a little bit real quick. I got things to do, right? We got lately, last 2.5 years, we got a guy called Turki Alalshikh. For all the boxing people out there, the aficionados, you guys know what time it is. Got a new guy, got a whole lot of money from Saudi Arabia that's putting on some good fights and some good cards. We're not having just the main event, you're having good co-main events and sometimes 4 or 5 awesome fights in one night, things that we're not really used to, right? And people that are into boxing understands, depending on where you come from, why fights don't happen, right? And, like business is supply and demand. And because of little external things, right, from the fans, the people that are in the boxing, the promoters and the sanctioning bodies can just offer you anything, right? Because of those fans sometimes are out there arguing and justifying people not fighting because they're a fan of somebody for other reasons other than him fighting, and they kind of say, well, you know what? Don't make this guy fight harder fights because we want him on top. And because that element is there, then we don't get good fights all the time. So, sometimes we get good fights. We so happy, So with Turki Alalshikh, he's got all this money, and he's taking this thing out where people can say behind the scenes they were lowballed, and they didn't get enough money and stuff, and they make excuses for not fighting. Well, he's offering everybody a lot of money, and if you're not taking it to have these fights, then he's putting you on blast where everybody's knowing what time it is and who wants to fight and who doesn't. And that is rubbing the people who were coddled and didn't have to fight. It's rubbing them the wrong way. But for us, the boxing fans that really want to see good fights, even for the guys that we like a lot, we still want them in good fights. It's happening now. A lot of people don't like it, but the fans are starting, the real fans of boxing really are enjoying the fact that we're getting good fights. Every second week, every third week, we're having real good, high-profile fights. But hey, one thing that always goes to my mind is, damn, too bad Turki Alalshikh wasn't here in the past, right? I'm going to give y'all 5 fights, that we probably would have had if Turki Alalshikh was around a little bit earlier, right? I'm going to go way back on one because I just heard him talking about it the other day. One of the baddest dudes that ever stepped in the ring, Roy Jones Jr. There was a guy from Poland by way of Germany named Darius Mistrzowski. I mentioned him in another video about a few days ago. He was undefeated, light heavyweight, undefeated. Roy Jones should have fought him. You ain't gonna have nobody undefeated in your division. But he was in Germany, and Roy Jones is like, I ain't going to no damn Germany. And Darius Mistrzowski was, I ain't going to the States. So they didn't fight. And Roy said himself, if Turkey was around, we could have fought in Saudi Arabia for a lot of money. Damn sure right, he would have done it. And that should have been a fight because, Roy Jones, awesome as he was, there's somebody else undefeated in the same damn division. That ain't supposed to happen. Darius Mistrzowski, he was undefeated, power puncher, and it would have been a good fight. I think Roy would have probably outpointed him, probably stopped him late, but it's just speculation. It was an undefeated guy, but I just think lesser people than Roy Jones was able to beat Mistrzowski late in his career, Graki Raziano. So that was a fight that I think would have happened if Turki Alalshikh was around. That's one. Let me think of another one. Another one is Andre Ward versus Gennady Golovkin. I think that would have happened if Turki Alalshikh was around. Now, Gennady Golovkin, when at the height of his powers, him and his trainer, Abel Sanchez, was saying, hey, we'll fight anyone from 154 all the way up to 175, matter of fact, they said, right? And he was 160 pounds because he was so powerful. And he was fighting a lot of 154-pounders, bringing them up and being able to walk them down and looking very menacing, right? But once he said that, I was like, oh, okay. So 168 pounder, Andre Ward was like, hey, bro, you ain't got to look too far. I'm right here at 168 pounds. And then they backed off that statement. And then HBO was like wanting to promote Gennady Golovkin as somebody that people ain't trying to fight. Matter of fact, 154 pounders did even, I think Demetrius Andre was like, you can have this, you can fight me. They ignored him. And Lara said something too. And when they was at 154 pounds, and they ignored those two. But Andre Ward was the high profile guy. And he said, well, what's up with this? You can meet me at 168. I'm at 168. I'll wait for you. And so HBO was mad at Andre for that and told Andre to leave him alone, right? But I think if your boy, Turki Alalshikh, was there, he would have forced that fight to happen because he's going against those things that I'm going to try not to mention today. But Turki Alalshikh is against that kind of crap. And he would try to give both of them some money and say, whoever don't want to fight, you're going to get put on blast. That's a fight we would have seen. Another one we would have saw is Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Right? That was for undisputed, guys. Undisputed fight. Should have happened. Anthony Joshua fans think it was because of Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder fans think it was because of Anthony Joshua. I think you just put it in somebody's hands, boom, and Turki Alalshikh would have said who doesn't want to fight because we haven't really. It's really enough information out there to know who really didn't want to fight. But I'm going to try not to get into that this time. It's enough information out there to find out who didn't want to fight. I can chronologize it right now, but I'm not. But if Turki Alalshikh was there, he would have said, here's the money. Damn it, because ain't nobody going to question him does he got the money like they were doing then. But whatever. And he would have put the one on blast who didn't want to fight. So we would have had that fight too. And that was a high-profile heavyweight fight for undisputed that we didn't have. Speaking of undisputed, another fight we would have had. Canelo Alvarez versus Demetrius Andrade. 160 pounds, $40 million was on the table, right, for undisputed. And Canelo just said, I ain't taking it. I'm going to call Demetrius Andrade a horrible fighter, right? That's what happened to that fight. I think if Turki Alalshikh would have been there, he wouldn't have been scared to tell Canelo, damn it, you're going to fight him or else, like DAZN was. Canelo started saying, I'm going to get out your damn contract, DAZN. He had a 10-fight, $385 million contract for 10 fights. He had fought a couple of easy guys, and DAZN was like, hey, man, you got to fight Demetrius Andrade. Canelo said, no, I want to get out of the contract. With Turki Alalshikh, he would have put him on blast, like DAZN should have done, right? They didn't. Like, it's an undisputed fight here. Here's all the damn money on the table. You ain't gonna damn take this money, right? You ain't gonna take this money? Are you nuts or something? So anyway, that fight didn't happen for undisputed. There's another one. That's number 4. Number 5, I got another number 5, but whatever. I forgot it. Here's one for you, though. Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez for undisputed, right? Undisputed fight. We could have had that. Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez seemed like he didn't want it. They had made a franchise title that he won from Lomachenko, and he just said, forget it, I'll roll with this franchise title, the real belt I don't want to have. Turki Alalshikh would have offered both of them money. The one that didn't want to fight would have got put on blast. And we wouldn't have had people running around in the rings talking about a franchise title, right? Franchise title that was egregious, and people were running around. I remember it in the ring. Yeah, well, he's the WBC franchise title, and just ridiculousness, right? With Turki Alalshikh, that corruption wouldn't have been there. He would have said, nope, Teofimo Lopez is the problem here, right? He don't want to fight. I'm offering him a lot of money for undisputed. Like he just did. You saw that Teofimo Lopez just turned down $11 million to fight Devin Haney again. So, but they would have been put on blast. Those are just 5 fights that would have happened with Turki Alalshikh. I'll give you an honorable mention. maybe even two honorable mentions real quick. One is the big one, the GOAT versus Riddick Bowe. Lennox Lewis versus Riddick Bowe is probably one of the most high-profile fights that would have been for undisputed. Riddick Bowe threw the WBC title in the trash can because the WBC was the one telling him you're gonna have to fight him, and it really looked bad for Riddick Bowe because you got beat in the Olympics and you still didn't want to come back and fight Lennox Lewis when you just could have fight him and you for undisputed, and you threw the damn thing in the trash instead of fighting Lennox Lewis, and we know why. And Riddick Bowe is a crazy kind of dude, awesome big boxer dude. But Lennox Lewis is that good to where he was like, man, I ain't doing that. You notice all these fights, these people that they don't want to fight, it's never somebody easy for undisputed. When people don't want to fight for undisputed, that guy they don't want to fight is always really awesome. Look at the names. I ain't fighting undisputed. Riddick Bowe said that. You know who he's had to fight? Lennox Lewis, right? Teofimo Lopez. Man, I ain't fighting for undisputed. You know who he had to fight? Devin Haney on national TV. You can get embarrassed messing around with Devin Haney. Get outboxed for 12 rounds. I ain't doing that. Canelo Alvarez. He had to fight Demetrius Andrade on national TV. Man, I'm face of boxing. I ain't getting embarrassed by no damn Demetrius Andrade up here. Probably stopped and bruised all up. And I don't have to fight him. Man, I ain't fighting that dude. Demetrius Andrade, Devin Haney, Lennox Lewis. We ain't taking undisputed fights. Those guys are all awesome. It's never somebody that's easy, right? Let me give you another honorable mention fight that would happen if Turki Alalshikh was there. Shakur Stevenson and Gervonta Davis. That would have happened already, right? It's probably going to still happen, but I doubt it. I don't think Gervonta Davis is going to do that if he don't have to. But now he might have to because that face of boxing stuff, that's out the window. Turki Alalshikh ain't trying to have face of boxing because face of boxing is everything else other than being the best boxer. Face of boxing is just popular, and popular is not the best boxer. Turki Alalshikh is paying the best boxers to fight other best boxers. That's why that's going to be extinct, and it's good. So basically, those are the 5 fights that would have happened if Turki Alalshikh was around, plus 2 honorable mentions. I ain't going to try to repeat them because I damn near probably forgot them already. But y'all know it. Rewind the damn video, y'all. Doma Sports Talk. Worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.